What if the biggest transformations in your life didn't come from massive leaps, but from small, steady steps repeated every single day? What if the difference between staying stuck in limitation and moving into possibility wasn't about talent, luck, or external circumstances, but about the habits you choose to live with? This is the quiet truth about growth. It's less about dramatic change and more about rewiring your mind through simple, intentional practices. When we talk about cultivating a growth mindset, we often think about beliefs. Believing that intelligence can expand, believing that failures teach us, believing that potential is not fixed. But belief alone is fragile unless it is supported by practice. Habits are what anchor belief into daily reality. They're like grooves carved into the mind, shaping how we think, respond, and see the world. The beauty is that these habits don't have to be large or overwhelming. In fact, the most powerful habits for cultivating a growth mindset are small, consistent, and deeply personal. They create daily opportunities to redirect your thoughts from limitation toward growth. Today, let's explore 3 such habits: journaling, self-reflection, and micro-goals. Each of them is deceptively simple, but together they act as daily rewiring tools for your brain. Over time, they reshape not only how you think, but also how you feel about yourself, your future, and your place in the world. Let's begin with journaling. At first glance, journaling might seem like an old-fashioned or even optional activity, but its psychological power is profound. When you write down your thoughts, you create distance between yourself and the chaos of your mind. You take something swirling in your head and give it structure on the page. This act alone builds self-awareness, which is the foundation of growth. Many people carry around unconscious stories. I'm not good at this. I always fail. I'm not creative. Journaling brings these stories to the surface where they can be challenged. You begin to see the patterns of your self-talk, the words you use to describe yourself, the way you frame your setbacks. With regular practice, you can start rewriting those patterns. Instead of, I failed, therefore I am a failure, journaling can help you reframe. I failed this time, and here's what I learned. This shift in narrative, repeated over days and weeks, rewires your inner voice toward growth. But journaling isn't just about reflecting on the past. It's also about setting intention for the future. By writing daily about what you want to learn, how you want to show up, or what micro-goals you want to pursue, you're training your mind to look forward with possibility rather than backward with regret. Even 5 minutes of journaling a day can make a powerful difference. Next comes self-reflection. This is closely related to journaling, but does not always require a pen and paper. Self-reflection is the practice of pausing, observing yourself, and asking intentional questions. At the end of the day, you might ask, what challenged me today? How did I respond? What could I try differently next time? These questions are not about judgment, but about curiosity. When you approach yourself with curiosity instead of criticism, you create space for learning. And learning is the heart of growth. Self-reflection also keeps you humble. It reminds you that you are not finished, that you are a work in progress. It allows you to celebrate small victories while also noticing areas where you can improve. Over time, this habit develops the mental flexibility to see mistakes not as proof of inadequacy, but as feedback for adjustment. Finally, let's talk about micro-goals. Big goals often intimidate us. They seem far away, sometimes impossible. A growth mindset thrives not on huge leaps, but on small, consistent wins. Micro-goals are those small steps you can realistically achieve in a day or even an hour. They're not about lowering your standards, but about breaking down the path into pieces you can actually walk. For example, instead of saying, I will become fluent in Spanish, a micro-goal might be, today I will learn 10 new words. Instead of, I will write a book, a micro-goal could be, I will write 1 paragraph. Micro-goals train your brain to associate effort with progress. Every time you achieve one, your brain gets a small hit of accomplishment, which fuels motivation to continue. Over weeks and months, these micro-steps accumulate into transformation. When journaling, self-reflection, and micro-goals are practiced together, they form a loop of growth. Journaling clarifies your thoughts and rewrites your inner story. Self-reflection sharpens your awareness and keeps you aligned with learning. Micro-goals turn insight into action and action into results. None of these habits requires hours of your day, but each of them wires your brain to think differently. They remind you daily that growth is possible, that mistakes are temporary, and that progress is built in small steps. If there's one truth about the growth mindset, it's that it is not an abstract theory, but a daily practice. These small habits are the way we live that truth, one page, one pause, one micro goal at a time. When we think about growth, it's easy to focus on big achievements and miss the quiet power of daily rituals. But habits are like seeds. You plant them, water them, and eventually they grow into forests that shape your entire life. Beyond journaling, self-reflection, and micro goals, there are more practices that can reinforce a growth mindset. These are habits that strengthen your resilience, broaden your perspective, and keep you oriented toward possibility. One of the most underrated habits for rewiring your mind is gratitude practice. At first, gratitude might seem unrelated to growth, but in reality, it shifts the lens through which you view challenges. When you consciously notice what you are thankful for, you teach your brain to focus on abundance rather than scarcity. Scarcity says, I don't have enough, I can't do enough, I'm not enough. Abundance says, I already have tools, support, and opportunities I can build from. This shift matters because a growth mindset thrives in abundance. Every night, writing down 3 things you're grateful for may sound simple, but research shows that gratitude increases optimism and resilience. And resilience is what allows you to keep moving when the path gets hard. Gratitude rewires the mind to see possibility in the midst of obstacles. Another powerful daily habit is deliberate learning. This doesn't mean going back to school or enrolling in a formal course, although it could. It means committing every day to learn something new, no matter how small. It could be reading a few pages of a book, listening to a podcast, practicing a skill, or even watching an educational video. The point is not the size of the learning, but the consistency of it. Deliberate learning keeps your brain adaptable. It signals to your mind, I am still growing, I'm still evolving. And this mindset creates momentum. Imagine if every day you learned just one new concept, skill, or perspective. Over a year, that would be 365 new pieces of knowledge shaping your brain, expanding your worldview, and building confidence that you can keep learning at any age. Connected to deliberate learning is the habit of asking better questions. Growth is not only about consuming information, but also about thinking critically. When you read, watch, or experience something, ask, what can I take from this? How does this challenge what I already know? How can I apply this today? These questions prevent passive learning and encourage active growth. They also reinforce humility, the recognition that no matter how much you know, there's always more to explore. Then there's the habit of resilience rituals. These are small practices you build into your day to recover quickly when setbacks happen. For some, it could be meditation. For others, it might be exercise, breathing exercises, or even a short walk outdoors. What matters is creating a routine that grounds you when stress or failure strikes. A growth mindset doesn't mean you never feel discouraged. It means you have tools to bounce back. Resilience rituals train your nervous system to shift from panic or self-doubt into calm reflection, where you can learn from the situation and move forward. Equally important is the practice of visualization. Athletes use it before competitions, but it works just as powerfully in everyday life. When you visualize yourself succeeding, not in a vague fantasy way, but in concrete detail, you prime your brain to believe that success is possible. For example, if your goal is to speak confidently in public, visualize yourself standing in front of an audience, breathing calmly, delivering your words with clarity. The more vividly you imagine the scene, the more your brain wires itself to see that outcome as attainable. Combined with micro goals and deliberate practice, visualization creates a mental blueprint for growth. Finally, let's not overlook the power of reflection at the start of the day. We often think of self-reflection as something we do at night, but beginning the day with intention is equally powerful. Before diving into tasks, take 2 minutes to set a growth-focused mindset. Ask yourself, what's one thing I want to learn today? How do I want to handle challenges if they come up? By framing the day with intention, you're already shifting your brain into a state of readiness. You're less likely to fall into autopilot or negativity, and more likely to respond with curiosity and resilience. These daily habits, gratitude, deliberate learning, asking questions, resilience rituals, visualization, and intentional reflection work together like strands of a web. Each strand may seem small, but together they create a structure strong enough to support growth through challenges. Over time, they reshape your thought patterns, strengthen your resilience, and keep you aligned with possibility. The key, once again, is not perfection, but consistency. It's not about doing all of these habits flawlessly every day, but about weaving them into your routine in ways that feel natural. Growth is not a destination, but a process, and habits are the road you walk every day. With each step, you rewire your brain to believe in change, to embrace learning, and to see challenges as opportunities. Stories are often more powerful than theories. When we see real people transform their lives by embracing simple habits, the idea of growth mindset becomes tangible. Let's explore a few case studies that illustrate how small, consistent actions can rewire the brain and reshape the future. Consider the story of Carol Dweck's research subjects. Dweck, the psychologist who pioneered the growth mindset concept, often studied how students reacted to failure. Some students, when faced with a difficult math problem, immediately said, "I can't do this," and shut down. Others leaned in saying, "I love a challenge." What made the difference? It wasn't intelligence, it was mindset. The ones who believed effort mattered embraced the problem as an opportunity to learn. This simple shift in thought patterns led them to keep practicing, which improved their performance over time. In many ways, this is the foundation. Growth mindset habits create a feedback loop where effort fuels improvement and improvement reinforces belief. Now let's move to a modern story. Take Sarah, a mid-level manager at a marketing firm in Chicago. For years, she felt stuck, telling herself, "I'm just not leadership material." That limiting belief kept her from applying for promotions and made her shrink back in meetings. But after attending a workshop on growth mindset, she began to experiment with daily journaling and setting micro goals. Each morning, she wrote down one intention, speak up once in today's meeting, or share one idea without overthinking. At night, she reflected on how it went. Over time, this habit rewired her inner dialogue. Instead of saying, "I'm not leadership material," she started asking, "What can I learn from leading small moments?" 2 years later, Sarah was promoted to a senior role. What changed wasn't her raw ability, but her habits that reinforced growth. Another striking example is found in athletes. Michael Jordan, often considered the greatest basketball player of all time, is famous not only for his victories but for his failures. He was cut from his high school varsity team, missed thousands of shots in his career, and lost hundreds of games. But he developed resilience rituals that kept him moving forward. Every missed shot became data. Every failure became feedback. Jordan visualized his success, practiced deliberately, and maintained daily routines of discipline that shaped his mindset. His story embodies the idea that habits, small, consistent actions tied to reflection and resilience, make growth inevitable. We also see this in the life of Thomas Edison. When asked about the thousands of failed attempts before inventing the light bulb, Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Behind that mindset was the daily habit of experimentation. Edison and his team would test dozens of materials for filaments every day, recording observations and adjusting based on outcomes. It was methodical, persistent, and fueled by the belief that progress came through iteration. In modern terms, he embodied the growth mindset. Failure wasn't final, but feedback. On a more everyday level, take the example of Jake, a young college student struggling with anxiety and self-doubt. He often told himself, "I'm terrible at public speaking," and avoided any opportunity to present. But he began practicing micro goals. Once a week, he would speak up in class with a short comment. At first, his hands shook and his voice cracked. But after journaling about his experiences and reframing them as progress, not failure, his confidence slowly grew. By the end of the semester, he volunteered to give a presentation. It wasn't perfect, but it was a victory because it showed how daily habits can transform self-perception. These case studies show that growth is rarely about massive overnight changes. Instead, it's about ordinary people choosing small actions consistently. Whether it's journaling, micro goals, gratitude, resilience rituals, or visualization, each habit plants a seed that compounds over time. Just as water shapes stone, not by force but by persistence, habits reshape the brain through repetition. What ties all these stories together is the underlying neuroscience. The brain is plastic. Neural pathways strengthen with use. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I can't," that pathway deepens. But if you train yourself to say, "I can learn," over time, that becomes the dominant pattern. Habits are the tools that carve these new grooves in the mind. Every act of journaling, every reflection, every visualization is not just a task, it's a rewiring. This is why growth mindset cannot remain just an idea. It has to be practiced daily. Ideas inspire, but habits transform. When we hear Sarah's story, or remember Edison's persistence, or see how Jordan embraced failure, what we're really seeing is the compounding effect of small, repeated actions rooted in the belief that growth is possible. In building a growth mindset, one of the most underrated yet transformative habits is the way you approach your mornings. The first hour of your day often sets the tone for the rest of it. Many people rush into their mornings, immediately reaching for their phones, scrolling through emails or social media, and already stepping into a reactive mode. But what if you rewired your mornings into a proactive foundation for growth? A growth-oriented morning routine can be simple but intentional, designed not for perfection, but for clarity and momentum. For example, taking 5 minutes to journal about your goals and gratitude directs your brain toward positivity and purpose before the challenges of the day appear. This small practice plants seeds of resilience because it reminds you daily of what matters most and where your energy should go. Another daily habit that rewires the mind for growth is engaging in micro-learning. Many people think self-improvement requires hours of study, but consistent small doses of new knowledge are far more sustainable. Reading even 2 or 3 pages of a meaningful book, listening to a short podcast, or writing down one new idea each morning creates a continuous flow of inspiration and intellectual expansion. Over weeks and months, these micro-investments compound, shifting your internal narrative from "I don't know enough" to "I am always learning and growing." This reframes challenges not as threats to your intelligence, but as opportunities to apply the new tools you steadily acquire. Movement is also a crucial but often overlooked habit in rewiring the brain for growth. Scientific studies show that exercise stimulates neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections. You don't need intense workouts. Even light physical activity like a 10-minute walk or stretching session each day sharpens focus and boosts mental resilience. It reminds your body and mind that progress often comes in small, repeated actions, not sudden dramatic changes. By committing to daily movement, you align with the principle that growth is about showing up consistently rather than waiting for perfect conditions. Equally important is the practice of daily reflection at night. While mornings set the tone, evenings close the loop. Spending 10 minutes to reflect on what went well, what could have been improved, and what you learned reinforces self-awareness. Instead of beating yourself up over mistakes, you train yourself to view them as lessons, directly reinforcing the growth mindset. This ritual allows you to celebrate progress, however small, and to reset your approach for the next day without carrying unnecessary guilt or self-criticism. Over time, this gentle but honest self-assessment shapes a mind that seeks growth instead of perfection. Another layer to consider is the practice of setting micro-goals daily. These are not overwhelming, life-changing targets, but small, specific, achievable actions that keep you moving forward. For instance, instead of writing "get healthier," a micro-goal might be "drink an extra glass of water today," or "walk for 15 minutes during lunch." Each accomplished micro-goal is a psychological victory that proves to your brain you are capable of progress. These wins build momentum and reinforce the identity of being someone who grows, adapts, and improves. Over time, the accumulation of small wins reshapes how you see yourself, embedding the belief that effort leads to growth. What ties all these habits together is not their complexity, but their consistency. The brain rewires through repetition, not intensity. By journaling, reflecting, setting micro-goals, moving daily, and engaging in micro-learning, you form a rhythm that gradually transforms how you think and respond to life. A growth mindset isn't built through occasional bursts of motivation, but through these small, steady rituals that continually remind you of your capacity to change and improve. The daily choices you make become proof that growth is not just an idea, it is a way of living. Every time you try to introduce a new habit into your life, resistance will appear. It might come in the form of excuses, distractions, or the voice inside your head that tells you, "This isn't worth it," or "I'll start tomorrow." Understanding that resistance is a natural part of the process is the first step to overcoming it. Too many people interpret resistance as a sign that they're not capable, when in truth, resistance is a sign that growth is about to happen. Growth is uncomfortable, and your mind prefers comfort zones. Recognizing this pattern can help you reframe resistance not as failure, but as proof that you're on the right track. One of the most common obstacles is time. People often say, "I don't have time to journal," or "I'm too busy for reflection." But the truth is that habits don't need to consume hours of your day. Even 5 minutes of journaling or a quick note of self-reflection before bed can have a profound impact if done consistently. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for consistency. It's not about doing it perfectly every day. It's about doing it enough times that the habit becomes second nature. Micro goals, as mentioned earlier, can be your best defense against time excuses. By starting small, you lower the barrier to entry and make the habit easier to sustain. Another major challenge is self-doubt. When people try new habits, they often think, "What's the point?" or "I'll never change." This mindset itself is the enemy of growth. To combat self-doubt, it helps to focus on evidence. Look back at moments where you overcame something difficult. Remind yourself of progress, no matter how small. If you've journaled for 3 days straight, that's proof you can do it. If you've set and completed even one micro goal, that's momentum. Each small win chips away at the belief that you can't change. External distractions also play a role. In today's digital world, notifications, emails, and social media compete for your attention constantly. Building habits requires creating an environment where resistance is minimized. For example, if you want to journal every morning, keep your notebook and pen on your bedside table so it's the first thing you see. If you want to reflect in the evening, set a reminder on your phone that nudges you to pause before bedtime. The easier it is to access the tools for your habits, the less room there is for distraction to derail you. Accountability is another powerful way to overcome obstacles. Humans are social beings, and we tend to follow through more when others are involved. Share your goals with a trusted friend, or join a community of people working on similar habits. Even if no one else checks on you, the simple act of declaring your intention to someone else creates a stronger commitment. Some people even use public accountability, like posting their progress online. While this isn't for everyone, the principle remains. Accountability reduces the likelihood of giving up when resistance is high. Perhaps the most subtle obstacle is the perfection trap. Many people quit because they missed one day and think, "I failed." But missing a day is not failure, it's part of the process. Real growth comes from resilience, not rigidity. If you skip journaling today, simply pick it up tomorrow. Instead of focusing on the missed day, focus on the fact that you returned. This mindset shift transforms obstacles into opportunities to practice resilience, which is at the heart of a growth mindset. Finally, it helps to view obstacles as teachers. Each time you face resistance, ask yourself, "What is this teaching me?" If you consistently resist journaling, maybe it's because you're making it too complicated. Simplify. If you struggle with reflection, maybe you're trying to do it at the wrong time of day. Adjust. Obstacles highlight areas where your system can be refined. By adopting this mindset, resistance itself becomes part of the growth process instead of a barrier to it. In the end, the key to overcoming obstacles and resistance is persistence. Small, consistent actions beat grand intentions every time. Remember that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of success. Each time you stumble and return, you're training your mind to grow stronger. The more you practice persistence, the less power resistance holds over you, and the more natural your growth habits become. When we take a step back and reflect on the daily habits that shape us, it becomes clear that growth is not a sudden transformation, but a gradual rewiring of the mind. The science of neuroplasticity has shown us that our brains are not fixed. They are adaptable, flexible, and capable of change throughout our lives. Every time you journal, reflect, or set micro goals, you are sending signals to your brain that reinforce pathways of resilience, confidence, and curiosity. Over time, those small actions compound, creating a foundation for a true growth mindset. It's easy to believe that change requires dramatic leaps or extraordinary circumstances, but the reality is far more encouraging. Change comes from the small, repeated steps we take every single day. Journaling doesn't just record your thoughts, it organizes them, helps you see patterns, and clears the mental clutter that often holds you back. Self-reflection doesn't just analyze the past, it sharpens your awareness so you can make better choices in the present. Micro goals don't just break tasks down, they create a cycle of achievable wins that build momentum and reinforce belief in your own ability to grow. Of course, the journey isn't without obstacles. Resistance, doubt, distractions, and the temptation of perfection will always appear. But those challenges are not signs to stop, they are invitations to persist. Each time you push past resistance, you strengthen the very mindset you are cultivating. You're not just building habits, you're building the character traits of discipline, patience, and adaptability. That's what a growth mindset really is, the capacity to keep moving forward, even when it's difficult. Think of the people you admire most. Their success wasn't the result of one single decision or one big breakthrough. It was the result of a collection of small, consistent actions repeated over months and years. The difference between someone who thrives and someone who stays stuck often lies in these daily choices. Will you choose to write down your thoughts today? Will you choose to set one small goal and complete it? Will you choose to reflect on your setbacks and learn from them instead of ignoring them? These decisions may feel small in the moment, but they compound into extraordinary change. So as you close this video, ask yourself, what is one small habit you can start today that supports your growth mindset? Don't overthink it. Maybe it's writing down 3 sentences about your day. Maybe it's setting one micro goal before you go to bed. Maybe it's pausing for 2 minutes in the morning to reflect on what you want to learn. Whatever it is, start with something you can do consistently. The key is not size, but repetition. Once you build momentum, the habit will grow with you. Remember, growth mindset is not about never failing. It's about never giving up. It's about seeing setbacks as setups for comebacks. It's about trusting that your brain can adapt, that you can change, and that no obstacle is permanent. Every habit you practice strengthens this belief until it becomes second nature. And once it does, the way you see yourself, your challenges, and your possibilities will transform forever. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might be struggling, someone who needs to be reminded that they are not stuck, that they can grow. Like this video if it gave you even one useful insight, and subscribe to Think Fresh Daily for more content that helps you reframe your mindset, build resilience, and unlock your potential. We release new videos every week, designed to challenge the way you think and inspire the way you live. Your growth journey doesn't have to be lonely. Join our community, engage in the comments, and let us know which habits you're starting today. Every story shared, every insight given, becomes part of the collective energy that drives us all forward. Together, we can make growth not just an individual pursuit, but a shared experience. So take that first step today. Journal, reflect, set a micro goal, rewire your mind for growth, and never forget, the future isn't something that happens to you, it's something you create, one small habit at a time.